Welcome to the next edition of Ask the Expert, and I'm joined by my colleague Amir Hussain, who is the head of our employee benefits team. So Amir, thank you very much for joining me and welcome to the show. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me, Lee.
No problem. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your experience and getting some insight into the world of group medical insurance. So first of all, just tell me a little bit about yourself, Amir, in terms of your experience within the industry.
Okay. I mean, without giving away my age too much, I've been in the industry for coming up to 25 years.
Okay.
So I got into the industry back in the UK in financial services with the likes of Britannic Insurance. I moved on to become an IFA with Edward Jones in Canary Wharf.
Nice.
16 years ago, I came out to Dubai to visit, and I've been here since. So yeah, I've been in the employee benefit space in the UAE for 16 years now, on both sides of the fence, so as a broker and as an insurer.
So there's a lot of experience and that we can try and get out of you today.
A wealth of experience.
A wealth of experience, absolutely. And you've been with AFIA now for how long?
I've been with AFIA now for 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd been asked to come across and to develop, to grow the corporate side of the business in line with being one of the largest retail brokers in Dubai. This is something, that was the next step to bring the corporate space up to the same as the retail space.
So obviously it is a vast subject, but we're going to keep it to a certain level, and no doubt we will do this again at some point.
Sure.
So I think to start off, obviously very kind of topical subject at the moment is COVID-19. Has there been a huge impact in the world of group medical insurance on the back of COVID-19 itself?
So yeah, an impact of COVID on the industry. There's been an impact on society in general, right? So yes, I mean, if we were to relate this to medical insurance, if we relate this to claims, we've seen a different trend right now. So outpatient claims, people are shying away from hospitals, medical facilities. We've seen claims drop depending on the facilities that you talk to, depending on the actual professions. 65 to 80% reduction in outpatient claims. Inpatient claims. So the government took the initiative there as well. But anything that is non-necessary treatment has been taken, a back shelf right now. So claims have gone down, but we've also seen an increase in inpatient claims for COVID. It's yet too soon to see what the overall impact would be. We're seeing claims for COVID, inpatient claims costing anything from between 40,000 dirhams per claim to 300,000 dirhams per claim. So I mean, we'll feel the effect of that long term.
Yeah.
As far as the industry is concerned, we are seeing utilization trends change. We are seeing people utilizing telemedicine services. So, they're more willing to use the service and to take, the advice that they need, the consultations to some degree virtually.
Yeah.
So this is something that has picked up. But yeah, the long-term effects of this on the industry, it's still too soon to actually see.
And obviously there's let's say an economic squeeze going on at the moment. Are we seeing a trend therefore with employers kind of looking to cut costs and using group medical insurance as a way to do that? Or are we actually seeing in some cases that they are looking to ensure they have the right cover and maybe even have better cover, so therefore are spending more money perhaps?
Good question. Yeah. So yeah, again, as we started, right, there is a general squeeze in the market.
Yeah.
So the economy has slowed down. People are price conscious right now, but at the same time, people are very conscious about having adequate cover.
Okay.
Right. Adequate cover is twofold, right? It could mean having the right amount of cover. Yeah. At the same time, and that's where we give our advice, right, is making sure they don't have too much cover.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. So it's making sure that the cover that they have is adequate. People are cutting costs, but we don't see many people saying, reduce my benefits, slash my benefits, and give me something that's a bigger level down. We're seeing people ask for more employee participation. So, using excesses, using co-pays on outpatient, for example, is something that we're seeing more and more of, which is good right now because it still has a price impact. So building in a big co-insurance on outpatient treatment, on medicines, etc., brings the price down overall, but people are not actually utilizing the service anyway. People are not going into hospitals or clinics for claims unless it's unless it's essential. The likelihood of your employees being impacted on this is pretty low. And then with people using the IT platforms and telemedicine, they avoid paying that excess anyway, right? So it's an incentive for them to use the telemedicine service. At the same time, it brings down the cost that the employer is paying for that service that they have.
So pandemics are usually an exclusion on this type of policy. Do you think that there'll be an increase in the cost going forward on the back of COVID-19?
Yeah, interesting question. So pandemics, in the local market, pandemics are a general exclusion on most medical insurance policies. On your international type plans, they would cover this as standard. The government took the initiative locally to say that all insurance companies had to cover COVID as an emergency.
Good step.
So we've been lucky in this part of the world to have that cover in place. So we're not seeing as many people having the shortfalls that they would have inherently had in their medical insurance plans. How this would be tackled long term is something that is debatable. It's something that people are talking about, on all sorts of forums. But yeah, we would have to factor this in long term. It doesn't look like it's going to go away very soon. I think it's here for the foreseeable future. So initially the government had took the initiative to say that people that weren't insured, they would cover the cost of it. How sustainable is this if we see the second wave, that people are talking about? The way that insurers in the market are talking about, the long-term strategy on this, and the authorities would be to have a charge on every policy that is sold in the market. So a BASMA type fee that was brought in to cover certain cancers. I think that we will see a fee of this nature being introduced to cover COVID-related claims. So to build up a fund or to offset that risk of somebody contracting COVID. So we would have to see an additional cost built into all insurance policies to make sure that people are covered adequately going forward.
As of recent times, there's been a lot of people, we've all been locked away for a certain period of time, spending a lot of that time indoors, and of course that has effect on mental health in many cases. Is this something that is typically covered within the majority of kind of group medical insurance plans, or is it now something that is kind of being, there's more focus on it?
Mental health, traditionally, if you want to call it that, it's a taboo subject, right? People don't talk about their mental health issues, but it's something that is becoming more and more apparent. If you directly relate it to the whole COVID situation, being cooped up, being isolated, has affected people in different ways. Even if you put it down to certain statistics that have shown, problems at home with your spouse that has gone up, being locked away in your house with your children at all hours, has affected people in different ways. But then the added burden of things like, the uncertainty around the whole condition, people losing jobs, people being scared of contracting the illness if they go out. Everybody knows somebody that has had the illness. I know people that have died from the illness, right? So it's coping with that type of bereavement that we need that personal touch, right? Or that support structure needs to be there in place, especially if we're isolated and we're stuck at home. I know the situation is easing up, but it could very easily be reversed, right, if it's not handled correctly. So yes, people are talking more and more about having adequate cover for psychological conditions, to have counseling in place. So along with the prevalence of your telemedicine, your virtual consultations with general practitioners and medical doctors, we are seeing people talking more and more about things like your employee assistance programs. So, having the access to a counselor, somebody that you could speak to with regards to, certain concerns or fears or, anxiety that you may have. I think this is something that is going to become, more and more visual. People are going to be talking about it. People are going to be seeing it, and at some point, I think this will be built into a lot of medical insurance plans, as it is in the West. So this is something that will come up.
So of course, I mean, there's lots of different types of levels of policy that you can have when it comes to group medical insurance. What would be the key reasons to ensure that you have a good policy in place, disregarding COVID as such?
I mean, COVID has brought it to everybody's attention, right? To really look at the policies, look at what's actually covered, where their shortfalls are. That's part of our job, right? As a consultant for you to look at your operations as a business, look at the demographics of your group, and make sure that the cover that you have is adequately covering, the eventualities.
Yeah.
Okay, COVID was not something that we could have foreseen, right? But there's all sorts of other areas around that are specific to your organization. On a corporate medical insurance policy, a lot of these are bespoke policies, right? Depending on the size of the group, we build that policy to suit your requirements. So, I mean, what are the advantages of having a good medical insurance policy, apart from making sure that you've got access to the right medical treatment, to make sure that your employees are physically fit. Again, you address the concern of mental health, right? Some companies in the market have taken a more holistic approach to the medical plans that they're actually offering. So it's part to take care of their medical well-being, and then they have modules that are dedicated to an employee's psychological well-being, and that includes things like your employee assistance program. So your employee might be well enough to come into work physically, but once they're at work, are they actually performing? Right? Are they there? Are they switched on? So it's to take care of not just the absenteeism that might be there because they're sick, but if they're in the office and they're not tuned in, they're not all there because they're worrying about something in their life. It's to make sure that that it's presenteeism, that they're actually at work and present, right? They're doing the job. And some policies will go on then to offer some level of security assistance for people that are traveling throughout the region. It sounds like I'm plugging certain insurers, but I'm not. Right? But I'm saying that the insurers are looking at this in a much more holistic way, and that's just to make sure that your employees are taken care of, not just because they're taken care of, but this might be a form of employee retention for a start. Being in the UAE, being in Dubai, it's a very competitive market. Good talent is difficult to retain and to attract. And that is something that people are talking more and more about. When they go into a job, go into an interview, people are asking, who am I insured with? Where is your medical insurance, right? And that's a key concern as part of people's benefit packages.
Definitely. So it's just a case of really making sure, or using it as an opportunity to make sure that your employees are happy, healthy, and therefore they're going to increase their productivity in theory on the back of that, and a way to also attract the best people that are out there in the market, because they will look at the benefits such as the medical insurance, and that can impact on their decision as to which company to join, right?
Correct, yeah. And the current situation has just brought that home to a lot of people. They are questioning the cover that they have for themselves and for their dependents.
So let's talk brokers. So what's the key benefit of having a insurance broker to assist when you're looking at your company medical insurance?
Okay, so I mean, the role of a broker, I've been doing this in Dubai for 16 years, right? So, I hope I have a little bit more insight into what is actually out there, what is available, so an insight into the way plans are priced, the risks that are out there in the market that people are overlooking. We deal with all sorts of segments of organizations in the market. So knowing what fits which organization, it's the process is a lot quicker when we're actually doing it. When you've got coming up to $1 billion dirhams worth of buying power, a broker would have access to deals, if you want to call it that, that you as an individual would not have. Be it with better pricing, better benefits, in some instances bespoke products that are available to specific brokers based on who they are, right? So there's a lot more that we can bring to the table. It's not just on pricing, on products. It's on advice. pre-sale. It's on administering the scheme through the actual policy year. Keeping a constant update on how that plan is actually performing, and not facing a surprise at the end of the year. It's managing the claims. I know policies cannot be altered through the policy year, but we can see the trend on claims in some instances. Okay. We can put certain fail-safes in place to educate the staff, on the way that their claims behavior is going. Introducing programs like the EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, if we see an instance like this where we need to manage people's psychological welfare, people are stressed out for whatever reason, right? Just being one example, it could be a case of people trying to manage their weight, right? And it's affecting people's behaviors in that sense to affect overall claims through the policy year, and then ultimately when it comes back up for renewal again, negotiating the right renewal terms for that specific corporate rather than a pooled increase that most insurers are applying to their clients. So the value that we add to that process is a long-term process. It's a long-term relationship that we build with our clients.
So it's a case of kind of initially find out the client's requirements, building tailor-made packages for them from there. But even once a policy is actually in place, it's also then working with them throughout that policy, keeping an eye on claims, maybe providing some sort of training and education as well. And then, of course, when it comes to the renewal, doing the very best for them as well. So it really is a full hit in terms of the service that's provided.
Well summarized, yeah.
Okay, Amir, so a lot of valuable information shared, and we've kind of only really just got started with this subject. I know you'd be keen or happy to speak to anybody if they do have any questions. We are also going to kind of open this out to anybody that wants to share questions with us, and perhaps next time we can kind of cover them as well. So a little bit of ask the audience perhaps, and we'll go into maybe some further detail next time as well. So yeah, I think it'll be great to do this again. I really appreciate your time today, and it's been very useful, very, very valuable. So yeah, I look forward to catching up with you very soon.
Anytime, yeah. Thank you very much.